Hey, welcome to the Pressure Washing Pastor Podcast. My name is Joshua Brown, and I'm on a mission. I want to change the way that we think so I can change the way that we act and ultimately what we do on planet Earth. It is my belief that the majority of our lives will be lived inside the workplace, and the workplace is not meant to be separated from our witness or our testimony or what we do for a living, but we're called to usher in the kingdom of God by the way that we live our lives. And for the next several weeks, I'm bringing on the best guests that I can possibly find on the planet. And I'd invite you to join me on this journey. I'm going to be asking them 4 questions. They're going to share their testimony. I'm going to ask them a little bit about purpose, the meaning of this life, how they fulfill that purpose in what they do. And then I'm going to ask them what I believe is one of the greatest questions that you can ask a human being. It's this: if you can only share one message before you die, what one message would you share with planet Earth? And with no further ado, I want to welcome my friend Curtis Hunnicutt to the room. Curtis, what is up?
What's up, dude?
Hey, we were chatting before coming on here. It is my honor to have you here. I'm humbled and excited to hear again your story and for you to share your life with our listeners of what God has done inside your life. And so I want to just start off right out of the gate by asking you this question: who is Curtis Hunnicutt?
Who is Honey? I have this 4-page thing that I wrote out of the man that I want to become, and I consolidated it over like 10 years into a sentence. As I will be willing to sacrifice who I think I am for who God created me to be at any moment. I would be willing to sacrifice who I think I am for who God created me to be. So for me, I feel like more and more it's just becoming true. It's the identity of what a son looks like. And I'm literally adopted. So I have this picture of adoption and what that feels like and what that looks like. And to have a need that when you had zero ability to provide for yourself, you were given provision and everything you needed. So, yeah.
So good. I feel like
I'd say that.
That's like spoken word. I feel like clicking, snapping my fingers. Hey, say that quote again, because I need to process what you said. I'm willing at any moment to exchange. Yeah, say it.
I will be willing at any moment to sacrifice who I think I am for who God created me to be. Because I was in network marketing when I was 19, 20 years old. And I was in network marketing for maybe 5 years. And we would always do these exercises to where you have, vision boards where you put the Ferrari and the Lamborghini and the houses and all this stuff. Like, this is everything that I want. But as I started climbing the ladder, I'll never forget. It was one of my mentors at the time. Dude, he was like 28, 29 years old. He was making somewhere around $500,000 a year. And he was, or at least that's what I thought at the time. I don't know how much he was really making, but maybe something like that. And we were in Costa Rica. And this was one of my first trips that was kind of like paid for with the company. And we're just in this big, crazy house. And I'm sitting in the ocean with him, watching the sunset in Costa Rica. It's just, I'm in heaven at the time. And he looks at me, and then he kind of looks off and stares into space. And he said, after a while, a white sand beach is just another white sand beach. And I just remember that hit me so hard, because I'm like, this is the dude that has everything that I'm chasing after. Like, he has the skills, he has the abilities, he has the finances, dude's just handsome. He did had everything going for him. And he's like, all this isn't what I thought it was. So for me, I stopped making these vision boards of all the stuff that I wanted to accumulate. And it's like, well, what's the one thing that doesn't really change? Like, what's the one thing that can be a constant when everything else is shifting? Well, it's the man that I want to become. It's the man that I was designed to be. If I can uncover and figure out how God wired and designed me and just pursue that, it's an immovable target. So that's where I think that statement ended up coming from. Is I tried to write out, this is the man I want to be. And then every quarter when I would go back through, I'd just consolidate. I'd remove sentences and, kind of mash things together. And then that's what came out of it.
Would you say that your friend that had it all, what would you, let me just ask, what would you say is the root emotion that expressed that verbiage to you at that moment? Have
I
you ever
think he was just
pondered?
gutted in a way. Yeah. I think it was just the best word I have for it right now is hollow. It's just, there was a hollowness of this is because it has to be a worse feeling, right? If I am poor and my desire is to be rich, I have hope that there is a better place than this. But if I'm poor and I desire to be rich and I get rich and I thought that was what I was after, well, now what am I after?
It's so good,
Like
man.
you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
what drives us is because we're pursuing something. You're even in your introduction to this, your pursuit of being able to put that message out into the world and to see people start businesses that are making disciples and reaching people. It's like you have, if you didn't have that, you don't have drive to do anything. So I feel like it makes us hollow if we get something that we realize was not what we thought it was, you know?
Are you familiar with, I'm going to say that you don't, but do you know who Judah and the Lion is, an artist?
I don't know.
Judah and the Lion. I'm going to sing you a song, and it's
Okay.
a hip hop kind of ish song, but he has one that's called "Take It All Back 2.0," and it's basically his story of accomplishing everything that he wanted, and then at
Mm-hmm.
the end of it, he's like, "Take it. You can take it all back just so I can be with you. You know, you can take it all back." And he talks about all this stuff, and so anyway, I want to share that song with you. It is a I was literally running. I was preparing for an ultra marathon when that song first hit my ears inside of my thread, and when it came down, I just was crying because it kind of represents how when we pursue stuff instead of the provider of everything, it's just emptiness, and then we're around people that want to be influenced or encouraged or loved, or man, I just want to be able to make X or do blank. And it's like, man, you're wealthy. You're the richest person I know. You have a wife who loves you. You have community and friends that come over. And it's like money doesn't trump the success of a life that's well lived. And so it's just, I love it. Sorry to talk so long. So, Curtis, are you still with me? You've got that stare in your eye where your screen has gone completely.
When I first started my own pressure washing business, I did not know what soft washing was, nor did I know marketing, sales, or even how to manage my finances.
Take the guesswork out of it. We have taken all of the knowledge we've gotten and wrapped it into video courses. It's a 7-figure blueprint for a pressure washing company that you can get at pressurewashingpastor.com. Go there, scroll down to video courses, and purchase it. We guarantee you'll get the value or your money back.
So go ahead and click pause, head over to the website. Now, unclick pause and back to your show. Curtis, many times in our lives, we're actually not born Christians, but we come to faith out of a story, out of an encounter. Were you born a Christian? And if not, how did you get there?
No, I was
Yes.
not.
So tell me.
Yeah, I actually, from a friend, I got a picture from us when we were maybe 19 years old. He sent it to me recently. He's in his 30s. He's doing great now. But I looked like a fat Rob Deerdick. I just had like I had extra here, and I'm holding up middle fingers, and I had a Famous, that old brand, that Famous shirt on, and a DC hat, and like girls' sunglasses. We were at a party. I looked like an idiot, but that was my life. Like I got all of my value from. For me, it was the W's of life. It was weed and women. Like that was the space where I lived in. Those were my metrics for success. That was like happiness. That was everything. So when I was maybe 20-ish, I started listening to Jim Rohn. You know who Jim Rohn is?
I do, but I need to get tipped. I need to draw
Dude,
nearer.
Challenge to succeed. Challenge is philosophy, attitude, activity, results, and lifestyle. It's insane. So I had a Chevy Impala. I tried to put, the systems with like the big kicker. I tried to install one of those in my car, and I broke everything that had to do with the radio. So I had a Challenge to Succeed CD set by Jim Rohn. And it's the only thing I listened to. It's not an exaggeration, in my car for a year. It was either Silence or it was Jim Rohn. And that thing is just beat into my subconscious. But he would always make points and use Bible stories as he made points on life and business. And it got me curious to the point where I started going to church to listen and take notes because of what it would do to enhance the rest of my life, essentially. And then I ended up getting invited to, I started doing children's ministry stuff because I was like, if I can act like a moron in front of, 60 kids and however many adults on a stage, I was in sales at the time. I was like, I can do anything on stage. So I did it for the selfish motivation, but then I got invited one night after we did that on a Saturday night service to a Francis Chan. I didn't know who he was. I thought it was like a motivational speaker. And I showed up and this Asian dude walks out wearing Nikes and jeans and a t-shirt to preach. And I'm like, what is this? And he preached on the resurrection and the death and the resurrection. And the way that he broke it down and the way that it got through to me that night, it changed everything for me. So the following day, I go to this Francis Chan sermon at a naval base in Annapolis, and he preaches on the death and resurrection. And it just, something hit me that night that I never understood until then. And it was the following night, my best friend had leukemia. So I'm 5'4", you know this, but I'm 5'4" in white. My best friend's 6'9" in black. So we look pretty funny together. And he was a D1 basketball player at Morgan State. He got diagnosed with leukemia. So I am 5'4", 135 pounds. Around this time, he was around 135 pounds. It's 6'9".
Wow.
He's skin and bones. But he was like, I was completely broke at the time trying to sell insurance and figure life out. He was sick laying in bed. So it's like, we were just the most pathetic couple ever. But I would go over there most nights and we'd just hang out. And he was a believer and I wasn't. But one night as he fell asleep and I ended up opening my Bible and I read, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. And dude, I got pictures in my head of people that I love. It's like, these people may go to hell if you don't do something about it. There was this genuine fear of, I have a responsibility. And if I don't do something, and I don't know if that's necessarily like, God's sovereignty, he can do whatever he wants, right? He doesn't need me. He doesn't need Curtis. He doesn't need Joshua. He doesn't need us to save the world. He's fine. He already did that.
Yeah.
But there was this deep sense of responsibility. And there's obviously an immaturity in it. There's a newness that you don't understand, but there's also a purity in it of like, I have something to do now. And dude, the next day, I took every girl's number I could think of out of my phone. I stopped smoking weed. I was like, I'm not drinking. And I just lasered in. And dude, the next 9 months were the craziest 9 months of my life. It was answered prayer. It was, I'm letting go of business. Like, I remember one morning I got up, I'd watch the sun come up, I'd read, I'd pray, and I'd go on this long prayer walk and I'd just listen. And it was just like intuitive almost to just pray, talk, listen, and just this daily rhythm. And yeah. I remember one day I was like, would you give me somebody to help today? And if we ask better questions, we get better answers. And so I'm on my way to this insurance meeting, and I got a call from one of my friends who's a believer. And they're like, hey, there's this homeless lady in the woods behind Walmart. And I can't remember what she was going through at the time, but they're like, would you go talk to her? I'm like, yes. I was so excited to not go make money and just go spend time with this homeless woman in the woods. And obviously at the time I don't have kids. I don't have, I'm paying barely anything in rent, but still, like, none of that is in my head. I was just so excited to see people come to know him and like to start to understand what I was beginning to understand,
So good. So rich. From there, did you end up going into ministry? Did you end up going to school or becoming a professional vocational pastor?
Yeah, not on purpose. I So I wanted to get rich. It was get rich or die trying. Like that was it. Even once I got saved, it was like, I heard of, like Paul J. Meyer. He gave away 90% of his income. One of my friends actually went to his house. I think it was in Florida. Paul J. Meyer flew him in, and he just has this compound. I think it was Paul J. Meyer. And they're walking around and he's showing them around. He had a whole room, it was a whole department that was just people that were hired to give his money away, full-time staff members. And their only job was to give away 90% of his income. And the 10% he lived off of was absurd. So I was like, that's what I want to do. That's the life I want to live. So that's what I was, trying to head toward. But I don't know, we were maybe like 4 years from when I first came to Christ. That prayer walk that I was telling you about, it was my family. I don't look like it at all, but half my family immigrated here from Turkey and Lebanon. So I got screwed in the gene pool thing because they all get tan. I just get burnt. But they had bought this house on the Chesapeake Bay when they moved here and started like a restaurant in DC. So I was living in that house at the time, and I got to do this. It was a 5-mile walk. I would walk 2.5 there, 2.5 back, but it was on the Chesapeake Bay. There's like a little off shed, and it was just beautiful. So I would do this walk every day and pray and listen. And one day I'm like, something didn't feel right. I'm traveling at this time. I'm speaking, but I'm telling people how to make money. I'm telling people how to be successful. But I had started to craft that, the man I want to become. And I stopped believing that the Ferraris and, well, I don't want a Ferrari, but the Lamborghinis and the houses and the trips were going to make me happy. So I asked on this prayer walk, it was, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to go all in on the business? Because right now I don't feel peace about it, and use that as what I do with ministry. Or is there something else that I'm completely missing? And do day after day after day, I just walked and I'm praying, I'm fighting and wrestling. Well, finally I didn't get an answer. So I'm like, okay, well then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the decision. But if you want me to stop me. But I'm going all in on the business. I'm going to give it every ounce of me. I'm going to give it everything I had, like all full alignment, full congruency. This is what I'm doing. Day one, I put 500 minutes on my phone, just banging out sales, working with the team. I crushed it. Day two, I got bronchitis and I couldn't talk for 2 weeks. And it was just, okay. So I kept doing this prayer walk. And it was the weirdest thing. I had dated this girl like years ago that talked about something with Hillsong, something with Australia. And I hadn't thought about it since then. But for some reason, at the end of that prayer walk, I was 2.5 miles out at the end on this little boardwalk that goes through an off shed back in this little tributary area. And dude, Australia just dropped. And it was just, it's just one of those things. I can't explain it, but you just know. Like this means something. So I ran home. I opened up my laptop. I start looking up stuff in Australia. The name Hillsong comes to mind. I only known their music, and that was it. And I didn't really listen to it. But I ended up finding their college. I was like, screw it. And I applied. And I got accepted. So I was like, okay. And then I applied for a visa. I got accepted. So that was September. I left for Australia in January. And that was actually where I met my wife. You know this. I'm standing right now. It's 5 o'clock in Sweden. Dude, the sun is setting right now at like 10:30 at night. It's so cool. But, I met my wife while I was in Australia for the year. And I went, obviously, because I felt like it was a very clear request. It was disobedience at that point if I didn't go.
Wow.
But I got excited about it because I wanted to understand. It wasn't like a school where you just got graded A, B, C, D. It was, for good, better, or worse, whatever you feel or think about Hillsong, to be able to see how something like that functions and to see the good and the bad and the ugly and, what in it looks like God and what in it may not look like God, at least from my perspective. That was a life-changing year. So dude, we planted a church when I came back, but I wasn't even licensed. I wasn't even licensed. I had to bring an ordained guy with me. because legally I couldn't do baptisms. I couldn't do I didn't know what I was doing. The first person, I'll let you ask your next question, but this is how much I didn't know what I was doing. I get back from Australia. I immediately ask Matilda's parents if I can marry her. I fly to Sweden. I propose. I come back to the States thinking I'm going to Paul J. Meyer. I'm going to make a bunch of money and give it to the church. I was still there, but I'll save you this whole God story. But another situation just like that happened to where I ended up taking a position at this church network that I had been a part of. I was attending the church there, and they put me into a brand new church plant, like a big one. So it was 17,000 square foot building. We had to get all the people, build the teams, do the project. Everything had to be completely renovated. I'm not licensed. I don't know what I'm doing. Once we actually launched the church, she's a dear friend of mine. She was like, I want to get baptized. Her son had killed himself. He's a veteran. He's a young guy. He's a veteran. And it was, I think it's a mix of, drugs, PTSD, and all of it, and took his life. And this was her only son. And I was watching her help other people heal through that tragedy. But, we had just launched the church. Her and I had gotten close, but she's like, it's time for me to get baptized. I was like, all right. Well, at the time, she was bigger. And she looked at me. Again, I'm tiny. I'm 5'4". She looked at me and she was like, you're not going to be able to get me out of the water. I'm too fat. I was like, first of all, don't put that in my head. Second of all, I'm dense. I'm stronger than I look. I'm going to get you out of the water. But she got into my head, dude. It's like every time I'd see her, she's like, I'm too fat. You're not going to be able to lift me up. Yeah. And I was like, dang it, man. So like, dude, I'm doing squats. I'm doing deadlifts. I'm like, I got to get her out of the water. So we go, I'm like, okay, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But I'm, outwardly, I'm looking like I'm praying. Inwardly, I'm thinking, okay, make sure your glutes are activated, core's engaged, good posture. I bring her down. I brought her up as fast as I could. And at the time, she would wear a lot of hair. I think it was hairspray. And her hair was kind of curly. So she stands up and puts her arms up like this. And there were 2 poofs of hair coming out of the side, and the back was just matted, soaking wet. I didn't get her all the way down. I'm like, oh, shit. She finally like brushed her hair back. But dude, I had no idea what I was doing. But God was he was in it. And I feel like that's the story of my life. It's so good. I step out into these places. I don't know what I'm doing, but I believe it's obedience. So there's a confidence. Like, you have to fix it. You told me to do this. So it's like, you got to deal with it. And there's a peace in it, I think.
Yeah, it's so rich. It makes me want to kind of move to a question of just like, what is the gospel? I had a gentleman that I had met with. He came in for a workshop, get training on how to pressure wash and open up his own business. Dude is killing it. His name's Zach Rollins. He's doing a phenomenal job. But he ended up sharing with me that he grew up in church but never heard the gospel. And so I'm like, how do you grow up in church and never hear the gospel? And so one of the things I want to do is ask folks that have come on, what if we have a listener here and they hear this conversation of going from the kingdom of WWF to and moving into this kingdom of light, like, what is the gospel? How would you share with anybody that's just wondering, man, what is the good news? What is the gospel?
The good news is the fact that I think the most lost you can possibly be is not understanding that you're lost. So I think the gospel essentially starts when we realize that we're lost. And, it was what Leo Tolstoy said. We had talked about that. I don't know if we were recording yet, but until we understand our own poverty, there's zero chance we can understand grace. And what grace is the fact that we were given a gift of life. We were given a gift to be able to work and to be able to till the land, to be able to produce, to be able to create, and mostly to be able to walk alongside with God in this life, to have the ultimate king that is promising, I will be with you in your day to day. And over time, we tried to, through what the law was, like manufacture that on our own to earn our own holiness so that we could have the ultimate freedom and the ultimate life, which is a oneness in communion with him. And we couldn't do it. And we used to do this thing with sacrifices. We'd sacrifice time, or we'd sacrifice effort, or we'd sacrifice animals in order to get closer. None of it was sufficient. So then God steps in, sends his only son to die, to show us, not just to die, but to show us how to live. Gave us a blueprint for this is what success actually looks like. And then to die the most heinous, pitiful death possible. And then to come back in a way to say, one, you now have full access again. And you never, it was in Hebrews, he's quoting, I think it was Isaiah. He said, I will remember their sins no more. Like that poverty that you lived in, that lostness is gone now. If you choose it, if you come to me, if you let me in. And if somebody's ever been lost before, it's the feeling of going, like, I'm trapped in the woods. I have no idea where I am, which way I'm going. I don't know if another step means I'm going to become more lost or if it's getting me closer to my own salvation. But it's a terrifying feeling. Conversely, the most incredible feeling that you can have is hearing that helicopter above your head and seeing the spotlight and seeing somebody come down. It's knowing like, okay, I couldn't do this on my own, but now you've got me. It's like, I get the chance to live in that every day now. It's just freedom. He said, for freedom, Christ has set us free. And it's through his death. It was through his resurrection. And those words become buzzwords because we're so used to hearing it. We show up on Easter and we hear those words, but I have to understand first my own poverty to understand what grace is and what it really looks like. It's just the most beautiful thing on the planet. It's what we were made for.
Yeah. Do you remember that moment where it kind of transitioned for you?
Yeah. It was on Anthony's basement floor. It was when I read those words. There was a deep burden that had no weight to it, is the only way I can describe it. It was a deep burden of a desire of what I now got to do with my life. But there was no weight to it. It wasn't, before the world was on my shoulders. Like we put our families on our shoulders. We put, one of my good friends, David Oski, says, I need to stop trying to be the fourth member of the Trinity. It's like we take the weight of our business or the weight of our family or the weight of everything, and we carry every piece of it on our shoulders. And there's just this heaviness. So it was the first time in my life I felt a lightness. And I read it the other day. It was when the storm hit and Jesus was taking a nap like a jerk in the bottom of the boat and everybody's panicking. They're all freaking out. And he wakes up and tells them that they need to stop being sissies. He yells at the wind and the waves and it ceases. But think about it. Why did they freak out about that? After the wind and the waves cease, they're like, even the weather obeys him. But think about it, dude. It's an agrarian society. What stimulates their entire economy? Their entire livelihood, their health, everything is completely predicated upon the weather. We don't live in that world. What we have is completely predicated upon either what a government allows us to do or what technology allows us to do. It's not, if we have a year of crappy weather, we'll figure it out. We'll be fine. We can still find ways to make money. We can still they noticed in that moment, you have control over everything that I thought I had control over, because I can't control the weather. I certainly can't control that. So I have this illusion that I can control everything else around me. So I put this burden on my own shoulders. And that's why he said, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Not that you're not going to go through crap and it's not going to be hard, but I will take the weight of it. I'll let you freak out and panic, but as long as you come to me, Like, I'll take the weight of it. And even with the little practical things that you think I'm not involved in, with your family, with your business, with all of it, like, I've got it.
Hey, I'm going to interrupt for a second because we've got a phenomenal opportunity for you. If you've been thinking about opening your own pressure washing company, I'd like to invite you to a free webinar. There we'll talk about the pros and cons of opening a pressure washing, and you'll get to chat with our team about whether or not you should launch a pressure washing company in your city or not. To register for this free event, go to pressurewashingpastor.com, scroll down to the little registration button, it's blue, and click on it, and we'll take care of the rest. I look forward to seeing you there. Have a great day. Now back to our show. Thank you. I'm thinking about those that might be listening today that might be far from God, because sometimes we come into a relationship with God, and then over time, it's almost like we're carrying our own burdens all over again. And so I just want to remind our listeners, you're never more than one step away from God. The part of the mission, or part of the goal of this podcast, is to change the way that we think, which is our word for metanoia, which is our word for repentance. And if we change the way that we think, we can change the way that we live. And so where are you with your relationship with God? Where are you? Do you feel his spirit, I don't know, convicting you? And does your spirit convict you? And I want to encourage you, man, the floor is right, a foot and a half away. And all you have to do is bow down and receive a God who absolutely adores and loves you, not based on what you've done, because we've done a lot of junk, but based on what he's done. And that is the beautiful story of the gospel. So I want to encourage you today, man, run to Jesus, hit the knees, confess, repent, turn to him, and he's going to make your burden light. The Pilgrim's Progress is, of course, a story that it sounds like when you talk about carrying a burden. You can read it in a children's version, which is the one I need and read, or you can read the adult English version, which maybe Curtis has behind him somewhere in
Dude, no, I can't read. I can read like 4 of those books, and that's because they're in English. The rest are in Swedish. So those books are useless to me. As of right now, they will be useful soon. But right now, completely useless.
Curtis, we have covered very little subjects in a very long amount of time. And so the question I want to ask you now is going to be kind of a closing question. And I want to end up you back on, if you're willing, and you have internet and we don't have demons in the monitors. When you're thinking about your purpose in life and how you fulfill it, I believe the meaning of life, or the purpose of life, is one of those questions that we all need to come to grips with. And if we haven't asked ourselves that question yet, we need to be considering, what is the meaning of life? And there's great books that have been written on it. What are your thoughts as it relates to purpose, and then how you fulfill that purpose in what you do with your life in the hash marks to when your day is no longer here anymore?
That's a good question. Paul has this line that he wrote where he said, at least in the NIV, he said, my ambition is to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. Like he had something that was a clear area of focus that gave him permission to say no to things. And it gave him permission to say yes to other things. Like, my ambition is to reach these people and to do this thing. That's what I'm wired for. And it was so clear. And I believe that we all have that thing. We all have something because here's the brilliance in that statement is he was never going to retire from it. It didn't matter if he was 107 years old sitting in a prison. He still had work to do, because not every Gentile was going to believe. Like, his work was never done, but it was also specific enough where there was drive around it and he could make tangible progress. So for me, it's to redefine success in our generation by who I become and how I serve. It's taking what the idea of success is and redefining it to where success isn't just these metrics of dollar signs or these metrics that we put on things. Because the more that I've dug to figure out what were Jesus's metrics, it seemed to me like they were joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, self-control, discipline. It seemed like those were his metrics. So if I'm yelling at my kids and I'm short with them and I'm frustrated with my wife and I'm acting a certain way or putting on a certain face in front of other people and I'm being hypocritical, those are metrics for me that something's off. Something's off. So what do I need to do? I need to recalibrate. So for me, it's a constant reminder that I'm trying to redefine what success is. I have to get back to the point where success is what he says it is, not what the air I breathe and everything that I see around me, what the rest of the world tells me success is. Yeah, I could keep going, but I already haven't let you ask.
No, that's good.
All the questions you want to ask.
No, you said we're headed the right direction, but I want to pull it out more. You said it is who I become and who I serve. How have you personally answered the question of who are you becoming and then who are you serving with what you're doing as it relates to your meaning or purpose on this life?
Yeah. So the who I'm becoming piece, I have this, you've seen it before. I have this kind of framework that I just developed for myself. And it gave me things to aim at. It gave me priorities. It gave me values. It gave me things to aim at to where like I know it if I'm being that guy, if I'm living as that guy. And the ultimate for me is I'll be willing at any moment to sacrifice who I think I am for who God created me to be. I'm not there yet, but that's the hope, right? That's my focus. So the becoming piece is I at least have that framed out to where I know what I'm aiming for. The how I serve piece, more and more, I'm convicted that it starts with my home. If I walk past my daughter or either of my sons or my wife in pursuit of scope, like broadness and scope and who I want to reach, I am neglecting my first priority, my first ministry, because there's a book called The Master Plan of Evangelism. Jesus grew deep with 12. The depth ultimately over time produces scope because I have this little piece in this greater narrative. I am not the narrative. Nothing orbits around me. So my job is obedience. And I chose to get married and I chose to have kids. So I chose that as my first ministry. It's a commitment. And if I don't lead there, then I don't care how I serve other people because it's not, there's no depth there. And generationally, I believe those things start to break down. But a real investment in my own children and my wife, that is an outpouring of God's Spirit in me. If my intentionality and my focus is on leading them well, like when Jesus said, follow me, he meant everywhere but the bathroom. Like, do what I do, watch my life. So if my kids can watch my life and not ever think, well, I'll do what dad said, but not what he did. But no, what dad did and what dad said was exactly the same thing. If they see that, they live that out. That's generational. That's me taking my part in the greater narrative. So I naturally want scope. I want to reach people. I want to do, but I've intentionally deleted all my social media. I've intentionally cut things back so that I can focus on what's priority first. And if scope ever comes, that's great. But if not, I'm investing in the people around me. I'm investing in my team with our nonprofit. I'm investing in the pastors and the leaders and the business owners we work with. Like that's my ministry right now. And there's a contentedness in taking care of that and doing it well because I'm seeing the metrics that for me, success is being defined as now. I'm finding and living in the joy even when there's tragedy. There's more self-control than there's ever been. There's more discipline. There's more forbearance. There's more kindness. There's more like I'm not there, but I see these things coming. And as I see them coming, it's like, those are the metrics. That's what I'm after.
You, in my opinion, we've gone through a vision map before. We're going to be bringing this thing to a close. There's been, I've gone through Michael Hyatt. I'm a big Donald Miller fan. And so here on a mission, love it. But as it relates to having someone that does it with you, your vision map framework of getting clarity on like non-negotiables, who you desire to be, your ambitions in life, and then setting up some clear boundaries is for me, the best life planning, vision map I've ever gone through. Who is the vision map for? If there was somebody that was maybe interested or trying to ask themselves the question, hey, do I need to go through a vision map, or do I need to reach out to Curtis and maybe have him coach me a little bit on life, or maybe help me walk through some places that I'm uncertain about?
Well, right now, the focus for me and the people that I'm like going through it with, it's either business owners or church planters. It's people that have kind of a drive and a purpose. I mean, we've done it with every type of person. As long as the person has drive, it makes sense. As long as they want to do something with their life and go somewhere, it makes sense. But for right now, business owners and church planters are the two that we're working with.
When you meet somebody, can you kind of describe some of the emotions or some of the things that you see that are common obstacles that they're facing in their life, and so I'll just share, what are some, so there are some things coming to your mind when you meet somebody. They've come to you because they have a problem. What are the common problems that you see of those individuals that come to you?
Well, I think it's a driven person is always going to try to figure out how to best invest their time. Somebody that has some kind of, like Paul said, my ambition. It's not a dirty word unless it's selfish ambition, which a lot of times we find out most of our ambition is. But there's a holiness in ambition in the way that we were designed when it's harnessed and used well. So I think a lot of times it's people feel like they're spinning plates all the time. It's like I get this one with my health moving, but then now my kids don't like me. I'm skinny, but I'm miserable. And now, I figured my business out, but I got fat. And it's like playing whack-a-mole as an adult. And it sucks because you don't want to play it anymore, But and that's what I feel like is the most common thing as we're spending time with people. It's like I've crushed it in business. I have all the money that I can even, that I know what to do with. I'm giving money away. But man, I don't know God and I barely know my kids.
Yeah. And so if you are struggling with depression, I would say you're a great candidate for checking out Curtis's work. If you're someone that is uncertain if you're doing the right things with your life, you're the right candidate for Curtis, because what he helps you do is, if you're like me, you've got, 1,000 different ways that you want to impact and change the world. But inside your ambition, you need to realize like there's only a few things that you need to do right. And if you do those right, it ends up downstreaming to everything else. And so if you struggle with purpose and meaning in your life, like that is a massive issue for guys in their late 30s, 40s, of whether or not like, hey, I'm successful, but am I doing anything with purpose? Successful as it relates to business, but significance as it relates to legacy. These are the type of individuals that make sense for Curtis. Curtis, where can people find information about you or get in touch with you?
So oasisproject.church is the website, and there's forms on there that you can fill out. They go to me. You can see what we do with the ministry that we set up the tail end of last year. And that's really it. I think I still own curtishunnicutt.com, but I don't use it. I think I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't use it. So the website is the best way.
If you only had one thing that you could share with our listeners before you left planet Earth, what's the one thing that you would want to share with our listeners? If you didn't know by now, we have created the #1 video courses on starting and scaling a pressure washing company on the market.
That's right. But head knowledge will only take you so far. You need the hands-on experience.
So what we crafted for you guys is an Experience Nashville 3-day boot camp. 2 days in the field, learning everything as it relates to pressure and soft washing and how the systems work, and 1 full day of breakout sessions with Joshua and myself. Visit pressurewashingpastor.com, scroll down till you see a link to my calendar. We will grab a call together and figure out how to get you here to Nashville.
And then we will see you in Nashville.
Back to the show.
Obedience is the only thing that matters. Jesus had what seemed to be a very stupid strategy. I'm going to live for 30 years and not do a whole lot of outward ministry. And then I'm going to spend 3 years with a bunch of people that nobody knows. And then I'm going to die an embarrassing death. But then you conquer sin and death and start the greatest movement in the history of the world. Nobody makes millions of dollars a year playing checkers, because checkers is stupid. It's just linear. You just take pieces, get to the other side, king me, and now my king can conquer the world. But chess is strategy. And like, we are playing a game. In chess, the best chess players can make you look like you're losing, or make you look like you're winning when you're really losing. They're just setting you up into a trap. And it's like we're playing against somebody that has been playing longer than us. He's smarter than us. He's better than us. He's faster than us. We can't beat him. But if we allow God to, he'll move the pieces for us. Because what it looked like on the cross was that God sacrificed his queen, not calling Jesus a queen, but in chess, the queen is the most powerful player on the board. And it looked like he sacrificed the most powerful piece that he had. But, I'm sure Satan in that moment's like, we did it. This is good. But God's better at the game than he is. But Satan's better at the game than we are. So obedience is the only thing that matters, because it allows you to see past your own nearsightedness.
Yeah, so good. And so if you are tired of playing chess where you feel like you have to out strategize everybody else around you, your enemies, your family, your wife, your kids, your wife's family, stop playing chess and move to Jesus' teaching of seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Inside of student ministries, kids used to come forward and they would say, hey, what does it mean to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness? And the righteousness means one thing: whatever is right, do that. That's back when I used to listen to hip hop, Christian Lecrae, Tripoli and the 116. But it's just do whatever is right, and then everything else works itself out. And so, Curtis, thank you for reminding us of that. I'm planning on inviting you on more in the future. I'm also wanting to have like a spouse round where we go through about 3 months and our spouses come on as well. And we end up having conversations of what life looks like on the other side sometimes.
That'd be great.
It also make you look a lot nicer too.
I'll just have her speak in Swedish. So if she has anything negative to say, that nobody will know what she's talking about.
That's awesome. Curtis, thank you for taking time to be out of your calendar and schedule. I hear your baby's in the background wanting to be loved on by you, but it's been a gift for you to be here, and I'm going to do everything I can to encourage you, and just want to love you more. So Curtis, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, man. This has been great. You're very gifted. You're made to do this, to just draw the gold out of people. So it's fun to see, man. This is why you've built the business that you've built and the family that you've built. You're great at it.
Hey, I had a dude, and this might be on the show if you're still listening. Scott might keep this rolling, but I had a guy like you last week that was on the show, and his show, when it comes out, ministry in the marketplace, I don't even know how it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know why anybody else would want to run a business and not be about making disciples, sharing your testimony, witnessing to your community, praying for folks. Like,
yeah,
why would you want to run a business any other way? And this guy's in Oklahoma and bought a franchise, and it's a dry cleaners. And he shares the gospel every single day with one customer. That's a metrics that he has as a owner. And he sees people come to know Jesus Christ while he's growing a franchise business in Oklahoma. And it's like, you don't have to be a pastor ordained inside of a seminary in order to be on mission. And Jesus chose apostles that were ordinary people to do a great mission. And so I feel like we're on the right direction. And so, it's on. I feel like I'm called to find those people, give them a platform, and call other people to do likewise. And so we'll see what happens.
I love it, man. Well, it's good seeing you, brother.
Have a good day.
Love you too.
Peace.
Bye.